It was the year 1386. A small town in Normandy, France, was still asleep under a blanket of fog when the church bell began to ring. People opened their windows, confused. The air smelled of rain and smoke. It was not a Sunday. It was not a holiday. Something was wrong. The bell was not calling them to prayer. It was calling them to judgment. In the heart of the village, a group of men stood in silence. A priest, a soldier, and a magistrate. At their feet lay the small body of a child. The boy's mother screamed his name, but he did not answer. His tiny hand reached toward the sky as if asking for mercy. Beside him stood a pig, covered in mud and blood, breathing heavily, eyes wide and empty. Someone shouted, "The beast has killed him," and the crowd began to move. Fear spread through the streets faster than fire. Within an hour, ropes were tied, the pig was captured, and the people demanded justice. But this would not be a normal punishment. This was to become one of the strangest moments in human history. For the first time ever, an animal would stand trial for murder. In 14th century France, religion ruled every thought. Every sickness, every death, every disaster had meaning. Sin was not only human, it was everywhere. If a creature broke the order of God, that creature too must be judged. The villagers dragged the pig to the local prison, a dark stone cell meant for thieves and killers. The priest followed behind, whispering prayers of exorcism. Chains rattled as the animal was locked away. The people watched, believing they had restored order to the world. 3 days later, the Court of Falaise opened its doors. Inside sat a real judge, real lawyers, and witnesses who swore on the Bible. In front of them stood the accused, a pig, tied by the neck, trembling, unaware of its fate. The judge raised his hand and declared the charge. This creature, by its will and strength, hath slain a child of God. The room fell silent. The crowd waited. The prosecutor spoke first. This is not a matter of instinct. This is malice. This animal knew what it did. It must pay for its sin. The defense attorney stood but said almost nothing. How could he defend a beast before men of faith? The priest took the stand. All of God's creations are bound by his law. This pig has violated it and brought evil among us. Justice must be served. The judge nodded and struck the table. Then let it be written. The accused is guilty of murder and shall be executed by hanging. The townspeople gasped. A woman crossed herself. A man whispered, "May its soul burn for eternity." The priest, however, looked uneasy. Perhaps deep down, he knew there was something terribly wrong about what was happening, but no one spoke against it. Not a single voice rose in defense of the creature. The next morning, the executioner prepared the gallows. The crowd gathered in the square before sunrise. Some came to pray. Others came to see. Children sat on rooftops. Women held their rosaries. Men whispered to one another that justice would finally be done. The pig was brought forward. It wore a white linen shirt and trousers, just like a man condemned to die. Its hooves dragged in the mud. Someone in the crowd laughed, but no one joined him. The priest read the final words of forgiveness. May your soul find peace in the eyes of the Lord. The executioner placed the rope around the pig's neck. The bell rang once for the dead child, once more for the accused. Then silence. No one moved. No one breathed. And when it was over, when the body hung still in the morning light, a strange feeling swept over the crowd. It was not triumph. It was not relief. It was shame. For the first time, the people of Falaise saw the reflection of their own cruelty. They called it justice. But history would remember it as madness. Because on that morning in 1386, the world witnessed the first animal ever executed by law, and in doing so, mankind revealed the beast within itself. Days passed after the execution, but the silence in Falaise did not fade. The square where the gallows had stood was empty now, yet the people still avoided it. Some swore they could hear the echo of the bell at night, even when it did not ring. The priest who had read the final prayer could no longer sleep. In his diary, he wrote a single line: "We hung a beast, but I fear we condemned ourselves." The story of the pig spread quickly. Merchants told it in taverns. Travelers carried it to Paris. Within months, it became known throughout France as a triumph of divine justice. The Church recorded it as an example of faith and order, but not everyone believed it was justice. Some whispered that the killing of the animal had brought a curse upon the village. Crops failed that year. A strange sickness spread through the farms. People began to wonder if God had been pleased or offended. Years later, the trial of the pig became a pattern. Across Europe, animals were brought before human judges. Dogs were accused of murder. Bulls were put on trial for attacking their owners. Even insects were judged for destroying crops. Each time, the courts followed the same ritual: a trial, a verdict, a punishment. And each time, the people felt the same uneasy satisfaction. But what was really happening? Why would entire communities gather to judge a creature that could not speak, that could not understand guilt or innocence? Historians now say these trials were not about the animals at all. They were about control, about fear. In an age where disease, famine, and death came without warning, people needed to believe that someone or something was responsible. If a child died, they blamed a wolf. If a plague came, they blamed a cat. If the harvest failed, they blamed the rats. By punishing the animal, they believed they could restore order to a chaotic world. But there is another truth hidden beneath this history. These trials were never just superstition. They were also mirrors, reflections of what humanity feared most about itself. Because when people gathered to watch an animal die, they were not only judging a beast. They were seeing their own violence, their own ignorance, reflected back at them. They saw what it meant to obey blindly. They saw what it meant to confuse ritual with morality. And in the stillness after each verdict, they felt what they refused to name: shame. In later centuries, writers and philosophers looked back at those events and called them madness. Yet the same question echoes even now: has humanity really changed? We no longer put animals on trial. But do we still create scapegoats when we need someone to blame? We condemn strangers on screens. We destroy reputations in seconds. We decide guilt before truth is known. And in doing so, we repeat the same ritual our ancestors performed in 1386, only now. Our gallows are invisible. The story of the first animal execution is not just about a pig. It is about us. It is about the moment when justice stopped being about right and wrong and became a performance, a crowd, a stage, a rope. The setting may have changed, but the instinct remains. Perhaps that is why this story still feels so haunting, because deep down we recognize it. We know that if we had been there in Falaise that morning, we too might have watched in silence, not because we were cruel, but because we were human. And that, more than anything else, is the strangest truth of all.